Okay, I hope you're all logging in and joining this wonderful conversation that we're about to start. Hi, my name is Dai Lee, and I'm pleased to welcome you all to the first digital event for A Taste of Harmony 2021. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners, the custodians of the land upon which we are meeting all today. In my case, I'm here at the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. I pay my respects for the elders, past, present, and emerging, and to any Aboriginal elders of other communities who may be present here today. And if you do happen to be joining us from somewhere else in Australia today, please feel free to include the name of those nations in the chat function below. In today's panel discussion, we're going to be chatting with multi-generational experiences of food, culture, and inclusion. And to help us, we have some very special guests. Our three panelists represent different generations and bring a vibrant mix of food-related experiences to the table. And today they're coming together to reflect on favourite family and cultural traditions, share heirloom recipes, and discuss the power of food in bringing people together. Representing the millennial generation, Alice Zaslavsky, or Alice in Frames, is a cook, writer, and active listener. Her modern, accessible approach to cooking has been honed through a career that has spanned compere, food judge, cookbook author, television host, and food literacy advocate. Alice will be bringing her Georgian, Russian, Jewish flavour to today's event. Welcome, Alice.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Di. Yay.
Representing Generation X is Chung Jae. Is a self-taught chef known as the driving force behind Korean cuisine in Australia, and I love Korean cuisines. In Australia, he has opened and owned award-winning restaurants, including Mapo and Soul Sisters in Adelaide and Little Miss Korea in Darwin. He is also an author, food stylist, and now a regular face on TV food and travel shows. Welcome, Chung Jae.
Hello, how are you going?
Hello, good, thank you. And last but not least, representing the baby boomer generation, Gabriel Gaté is an esteemed French chef with an international reputation. And many of us remember Gabriel growing up here in Australia, I have no doubt. Author of 23 cookbooks, he has been presenting cookery shows on television for the past 40 years. Gabriel learned the joys of eating and cooking from his mother and grandmother, who are both excellent cooks. So welcome, Gabriel.
Merci, bonjour.
Bonjour, bonjour. Alice, Chung Jae, and Gabriel, I'm looking forward to this very delicious conversation we're about to have. So just a few housekeeping items before we begin though. Today's session is being recorded and we will be available via a Taste of Harmony website in the coming days, in case you want to refer back to it or share link with your colleagues. And we will be using Mentimeter, an interactive event tool throughout today's session as a way for you to submit questions to our panel. For those of you who haven't used Mentimeter before, it's very simple. All you need to do is follow the prompts on the screen now. If you can see the Mentimeter prompt on the screen, either head to menti.com on your desktop or smartphone browser and enter the code at the top of the screen, or simply scan the QR code on your smartphone to find our event. From there, you select Open Q&A and type in your question for our panel. You also have the opportunity to vote up already submitted questions if you'd like to see them answered. And finally, for those of you wanting to take this conversation online via social media today, or to continue the discussion afterwards, I encourage you to use the campaign hashtag ATOH21, ATOH21. So let's kick off today's conversation. Question to Gabriel, whose bio I mentioned, a love affair with food, passed down to him by his generations of women in the family. Gabriel, can you tell us a bit about your cultural background and some of your most memorable food-related traditions that's passed down to you?
Well, thank you very much. First, congratulations for your green top. It is St. Patrick's Day today. So to all the Irish watching us, have a lovely day. If you can still watch us, because I can imagine that a few would have had a nice lunch today. Yes, I was born in a very traditional family, French family, on the Loire Valley. And we were brought up really as a family with my grandmother living with us. And it is probably one of the biggest changes now in changes in our societies, that people used to live with extended member of the family. And there was a big exchange of culture between members of the family. My grandmother, I'm very lucky to have a grandmother that was actually a professional cook in her youth. So she was a really great cook, and my father, mother, and all of us, we would help with the cooking as well as help with the gardening. The whole family life was based on growing or collecting or harvesting what we needed to eat. We bought very little food from outside. We also had a small vineyard. So that was really a festival. When it was time for harvesting, we would not go to school for 2 or 3 days, and the school was totally positive about that, because everyone in our region had a little bit of vineyard, and we harvested the wines, and that was really part of the way we live. And we bottled a lot of our food ourselves. In our small village, there was even a cannery where in summer you could bring 20 kilos of your green beans or lots of celery, and they would can it for you for the winter months, because the winter months in France are a lot colder than in Australia. So not much food grows during the winter months, but usually families of that generation anyway had kept things for the winter months bottled or preserved in one way or another.
So I'll come back to in terms of how that influence your cooking and the dishes. I'd like to go to Alice. So I want to go to different panelists here to just give a short introduction. So Alice, your Georgian, Russian, Jewish background. So how connected to these cultures were you growing up, and it's obviously how it influenced your food, the role in food, that you're involved in now?
I think you can pretty much copy paste Gabrielle's answer and just delete France and insert Georgia. So I was very fortunate to grow up with my grandparents living with us as well. And that multi-generational household certainly informed my experience of food growing up. For us, I grew up in the Soviet Union. So I would say that our access to food was certainly not as abundant as it is in Australia, but we made do, and we were very much a family that connected over food. And Georgians in general connect over food. We have feasts, anyone people with different cultural backgrounds will relate. You come into the house, in fact, of anyone that's Russian, Georgian or Jewish, and they say, "Have you eaten?" And so that was very much my experience growing up. And so I think that sense of hospitality and generosity is something that I've absorbed, not just in the way that I want to feed people, but also in the way that I like to try and be as inclusive as possible in the way that I communicate, and just in the way that I handle, try and add value as much as I can.
It's interesting that in terms of the people of different cultural backgrounds, how food really kind of bring us together. Chung Jae, I mean, you grew up in Seoul before moving to Australia. Do you have a favorite family food moment or memory from childhood in South Korea? And do you relate to this similar story that Alice and Gabriel, in terms of the influence of family and food in your case as well?
Yeah, probably. The olden days, we don't have much money in Korea. Back in Korea, it's like after war, we do have a lot of damage the mountain. There's no produce, nothing coming up properly. But in Korean, people making different way, which is they're making kimchi every winter between November to January. But we have to dig in the ground because we don't have any Samsung kimchi fridge at the time. We need the kimchi fridge. So we digging about 2 hours, and then we bury the kimchi in the ground. Otherwise, it's going to be frozen if you live outside. So that's a kind of family gathering. We all family coming together, like cut the cabbage and onions, all those things. And also, when I was growing up, I was a little kid, and then my mother has a black pudding shop, which is customers go around. We do like oil drum. We put the oil drum and on top of the barbecue. That's the stuff from Korean barbecue. I was walking around sideways. I was about 5 years old, chubby. And when they saw me, they always give me a little piece of pork belly. That's only remember my younger time. And also family gathering in Korea is really good. Grandma, mothers, only female working for making kimchi, but except to me, I have to work for all the peeling onion. So I'm really good at peeling the onion together. And also we do a lot of using garlic. Garlic, you have to peel it by hand as well. Olden days. These days, you got blender or thingy, but olden days, everything by hand. So we would sit down all together and then just eating together. And we talk about your future. I say, yeah, it's kind of the gathering. That's how we were starting the Korean culture. And then we eat together, which is we using same spoon. And as your soup as well, it's a bit hard for understand for Western people having a soup together with the same, like a double dip. But in Korea, so we can do that. Yeah. Kind of things I'm talking about. Yeah.
I'd like for us to just have please jump in if you feel like Alice, to contribute, or Gabriel or Chung to one another's conversation. Just how do you think the way we eat or approach to food in Australia, or more broadly across the globe, how has it evolved over the generations? Gabriel,
I think it's probably. Okay, these days, for example, my daughters, the younger generation using a lot of phone. And then I don't think they're eating properly. They're eating maybe in the nose, maybe in somewhere. It's like they're not focused eating proper etiquette. So like olden days, there had to be, some old man has to be eat first, and then we can eat it next. But these days, there's nothing like that.
But by the same token, because of social media and because they have their phones in their hands, the TikTok generation are reconnecting with food more than we could ever have imagined. I think finally kids are seeing that cooking is just like any other craft or any other DIY activity. So that's why you start seeing food hacks and you see real viral food trends. And I think that can only do good things for encouraging people to cook at home and hopefully reconnecting this generation that didn't necessarily grow up in a multi-generational household to connect with their culture and just connect with the kitchen.
Yeah, there's the information, like a young chef now, a young cook now, not chef, just at home, could get information a lot faster than my generation did. So what they are missing from parents, but at the same time, to become a good family cook, you need to practice. And I always say, I think it's important to mention that it's not because you watch football on television every week that you are going to be a good footballer, and it's not because you watch lots of cooking shows on television that you are becoming a good cook. Your knowledge will be pretty good, but ultimately, you have got the secret of learning to cook is to learn to cook new dishes regularly, and to practice those dishes a few times in order to master them. But you have got to start, and lots of people have got great knowledge, but little skills. And because my generation, nobody had takeaway. It was not, when nowadays, of course, I've got children in their 40s, and they don't cook every night. They don't cook every night. They cook a few times a night, and their cooking is more varied in terms of ethnic than years ago. There's no doubt. But in terms of skills, I think it is good if people really do cook as well as being informed.
There's 3 or 4 different points that each of you have just raised interestingly, and I just want to explore it further. Chung, you're talking about that cultural, the traditions, the respect when at a table, it's no longer there. Alice, you're talking about how the accessibility to, you know, due to, you know, this generation, while they don't have that, at least they're exposed to food. And Gabriel talking about how there's also variety of access to the different cuisines. How important is it to maintain the culture, to have that kind of food setting at home, Chung? And I'll go to you first, and then Alice, the question would be, while it's all that exposed and is great, is it important to maintain some sort of cultural traditions that the 3 of you have no doubt were brought up in a household, you know, the generational in food?
Okay, for example, my daughter is using a mobile phone TikTok. And one day I come home and then they made some beautiful food from the TikTok. I was really amazed because I don't think they're going to read the cookbooks anymore these days. So they actually learn from them. So some of the things is really good to learn from the mobile phone. So I can't even say begging for the mobile phone sometimes, but they have to be stopped one day, not all the time handing on. So that can teach the proper polite way to dining, eating habit. So if you're not eating eye to eye, I like the people see each other, no making noise when you're eating it, things like that. It takes time to learn to me. So I don't know. It's really hard
to share meals together, and it's important to, you know, I've written a book called How to Teach Kids to Cook, and we have written children's cookbook to encourage. You need to encourage to discover the joys of cooking, because ultimately it is the joys of cooking that you need to share with the generation. You don't need necessarily, or it may not work in Australia, to share your culture. It's not always easy. The dominant culture in terms of food in Australia, and I know it's not always popular when I say that, it is American food. And that's by far the most influential, through advertising, through the takeaways, through the burgers that are in every magazine, in every newspaper. Almost every week in the major newspaper, there's a photo of a burger of some kind. But it doesn't really matter. Your culture will be based on where you live, the climate, the season, your parents, your friends, your interest, your travel. So it doesn't matter where it comes from, as long as you enjoy doing it. And I think that you enjoy sharing it with other people. That's a real bonus in our life.
And food is such a perfect way of encouraging kids to connect with culture, because it's delicious. And I couldn't agree more, Gabrielle, how important it is to encourage kids to learn to cook. And I think it begins as early as when they start to learn to eat. You know, when they're sitting at the table, the more that they enjoy eating, the more that they'll feel motivated to learn to cook for themselves. And I know for me, I've got an almost 2-year-old who is insatiable when it comes to watching what I'm doing on the kitchen bench. I have to hold her with one arm so she can see what I'm doing, and, you know, try and chop. You can see I've grated my fingers trying to grate with one hand.
The next 2 years will be so wonderful, because they do. They take part. I've got 2 granddaughters at the moment, cousins that are 4 or 5 years old, and they're standing on the chair, and they really stir. You know, they hold the whisk and they hold the bowl, and they have the cutters. Like, it's for them, it's like Play-Doh, and then you instill that joy. And the technique also of eating has changed enormously between your generation and mine. Like, years ago, we really spoon-fed the little ones, where now really the food is on the plate. I recommend parents to not to mix it too much and to let them eat, to start with their hands, not to insist about, that they use a spoon, and not to be feeding your kids. The responsibility of a parent is to cook, and the responsibility of the child is to eat. That is the philosophy of eating, nourishing kids.
Amen.
Now, for many cultures, some of the most cherished inheritance are family recipes that will continue to define culinary legacies into the future. Is there an heirloom recipe that defines the unique identity and characteristic of your own family? Alice?
I think the heirloom recipe would have to be borscht. My babushka's borscht. That's, yes, my borscht, which is a beetroot soup, and it's very much just a vegetable soup where it's a red soup. It could be tomato, it could be beetroot, and what it encapsulates to me, my mum's recipe, is the ingenuity and the adaptability of her kitchen. Whatever vegetables are in the crisper go into the borscht. Whatever schmaltz or pan juices are left in the fridge go into the borscht to add flavour. Pickle juice, even a spoonful of jam, because it's all about balancing the taste and grating in the vegetables so that they cook quicker, because we've got to get food on the table because she's a working mum. All of those things come into play. And I think most importantly, what I love is that there's always a pot of borscht in our fridge, and it's always a way of us at the start of every meal, we have a bowl of borscht, and we know that we feel nourished. We feel like it's a real touch point, which I've had ever since I was a girl. Ever since I was at school, Mum would have that borscht in the fridge. That'd be my afternoon snack. And I love that our daughter now has that memory of her babushka. And I just think, it just is, it's love to me.
So there's jam in your borscht, is there?
Yes, yeah, just a spoonful of plum jam or apricot jam, whatever it is. You could put sugar or honey or whatever you wanted to, but again, it's just using what you've got.
All right, I'm going to put jam next time in my borscht.
Do
it. Gabriel, what's your the family heirloom recipe?
You know what? My eldest brother was a pastry chef, a baker. We all cook. I communicate a lot with my sister. We recently made a list of the dishes that we still cook and remember from our youth. There's like 100 dishes, but certainly what we keep, all of us, is the special occasion desserts. Because we came, our religion, we were Christians, so that was a strong thing in France, of course, and we had lots of fruits. The country people had lots of fruits, and fruit tarts are a really big thing with the French people. It was the number one family dessert because almost everybody has fruit. So when they're in season, you have plenty. You preserve some, you eat them, and you make some fruit tarts because we make beautiful pastries and custard. But there's also the seasonal food, like the winter casserole, like the type of coq au vin.
I love chicken coq au vin.
Because we had wines, like cooking with wine is really a big thing.
Yeah.
The French people. So we all cook with wine. We have kept that. You see that other families might not. They think that it is indulgent to use wine in cooking. We don't, because it is really part of our culture.
Chung, what's the family heirloom dish?
Yeah, in my fridge it's got 1 year old kimchi. Been making last year.
1 year?
I'm not ready. Yeah, 1 year. So I'm not even touching yet. I'm not even selling that one. Because that's hard to make it to get the condition.
Can you explain to us what it is exactly? Because I'm
kimchi.
sure
I've got a kimchi in my fridge, but I didn't know that you can keep it for 1 year.
No, not yours. Sorry, not from the buying. You have to make it your own. So that's how to treat. So that's a lot of secret in Korean kimchi, which is family passed on to family. Each distinguished state got a little bit different flavor. So my mother is from down south, which is one of the best chili paste area, which is a gochujang and gochugaru, which is a chili paste, long chili we dry in the sun, and they make it really finely blended And then in Korea, use the little prawn, the pickle. We're making pickle with that. That's the kind of a squid sauce, fish sauce in Australia. And yeah, the kimchi is the best one to make it. But I can't get all ingredients, but you can make it still here same way in Australia. But I can't give you a secret all the time.
Oh,
but
okay. Where can I buy yours?
Yeah.
I love kimchi's.
I know people ask me all the time. I say no, I can't sell it.
Come on,
And that kimchi, you can
nobody's
make the soup.
watching.
No.
The kimchi you can put like a stew. The old one, you can make it anything with that. And you know the pork rib, beef rib, we put with the kimchi, and then the juice you cook for a long time. The flavor is quite strong and smooth. It's like a old cheese, but it's got so many good things in there.
I should say mum adds kimchi
I don't
or
know.
sauerkraut as well into her borscht. So there's sometimes kimchi in our borscht. very, only in Australia.
Only in Australia.
Yeah.
Well, talking about being Australia, I mean, we often, at work, how people get brought together through food. Do you have any of your own examples from your professional or personal lives where food became a new way to form relationships or build human connections?
For me, it's another mum story. I feel like I should have just sent her to be representing on behalf of Alice Zaslavsky as Freda Burston, Professor Freda Burston. So when we first came to Australia, mum's first job in Australia, in Melbourne, was at Monash University, and they had a harmony celebration, I suppose. At that time, it wasn't officially called Harmony Week. It was, sort of 25 years ago. And her head of school at the university tasted her dish, and it was khachapuri, which is a Georgian cheese pie. And he said, if you cook like this for every bring a plate, you will always have a job at this university. And I should say she only just retired at the end of last year. So, kept that khachapuri going, that's for sure.
Gabriel?
Well, there's no doubt that when you have someone at your table, like strangers, you don't know each other at the beginning, but at the end, after a good meal, it certainly brings people together. I know that our son's girlfriend always loved to come and have dinner with us, which is, you don't have always the generation. There's no generation thing. A good meal is good for everybody. Hopefully, of course, there's things that some generations would not like, and there has been a change of the type of food that the generations are eating. For example, when I arrived in Australia, it was like in France, you had lots of offals, like you're talking about brain and sweet bread and kidney. Now the younger generation finds it very difficult to eat that kind of thing, and of course there's the evolutions with the respect of animal life. So there is very strong movements. But a good meal is a good meal. If it is good and you respect the taste and the particularities of others, you can really, after a meal, people are, there's good communication and it's a pleasant moment.
How about yours, Chung? Do you have, in terms of any in your professional or personal lives where in terms of food, bring people together? You've used it to bring people together and connect people?
Okay, so many of my chefs, I've been said to them, if you're good product, you don't have to do a lot of work to do. Just using good quality, good food, you can do really easy to cook for please everyone. So which means like we have a Korean barbecue, which is everyone actually gathering, cooking in there, and then just grab it. And actually, more respect way is when we're cooking the meat, we always giving first the oldest one, and then we touch the man to be with the two hands on, and then give them their own rice area. And then when they're giving us a drink, soju. Do you know soju?
Yeah.
It's like a rocket fuel. So
Yes.
once you have about 3 or 4 shots, you become everyone's
Gone.
friend.
Yes.
Really fast, really fast. So anyway, so that's how we actually gathering all family eating piece by piece. We're giving each other's and pouring the water, pouring the wine. The always youngest one is the busiest in the family and even friend. Even if you have a 10 friend, the youngest one has to be go around to solving all this. That's how in Korea culture. A little bit weird, but it's okay.
The respect.
And is that
Yeah.
if we're eating together, we'll get the first food.
Mm.
Oh no.
I mean, it's a taste of harmony. So we talk about food and how food can bring people together. But for me, working in a diversity and inclusion space, I often sometimes feel that is food the only way to connect people, or is there more to connect people rather than sometimes you have that diversity day at work and people bring a plate of food. But do you each think that is that that good enough to build a more harmonious society? Or do we have to go beyond food? This will be the last question before we go to the audience, by the way.
In Seoul, Gangnam. You know the Gangnam? Like
No.
Psy.
Oh, the song, the saying. Oh, yes. Gangnam Style. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. So people know about Gangnam Style, Gangnam. And after that, Korea is a really big hit for food, like a tteokbokki, which is rice cake. Sundae is like a black pudding. And hot dog is like a pancake, sweet dessert. It's a lot of people know asking me about this menu. Are you gonna do this one in your restaurant? But that kind of thing is a street food. I can't actually do in this area, but I can do it, but it's a bit hard for pleasing all the customers. And some other customer ask me wants to drinking soju in the morning. They want to be like a K-pop singer. So I don't think so. I can't sell that one in the morning. So it's like a lot of Western people know about Korean culture as well, want to learn. And same as because of drama, even my wife watching drama 4 until 2 a.m. She can't even speak Korean, but she understands somehow. But those kind of things are like the people. And then she watch the drama and then see all the food. And then she want me to make it sometimes. But the ingredient is hard to get sometimes. But she really understand the culture of any other, like if you're watching any other film, you can see the food and like a French food, oh, that looks good, I want to eat that one. Then you can actually get into their culture slowly. That's why I understand that way. Yep.
It is the French film. I'm sorry, Alice, you wanted to say something. You started before. It's the French Film Festival at the moment, and tonight we are going to watch a film called Délicieux. It's about the story of drama about the first restaurant in Paris, and but certainly that, and I think Chung touched it. Languages I think it's important, and especially for Anglo-Saxon people, to learn other languages than English. For languages that, in terms of culture, the language is a lot. The language is a rich source of culture because you can understand the way people live, and I think it is something that we need to encourage. Apart from learning to cook, which is necessary for your life, and it is a bonus. It is also a language, a foreign language. I think it puts another dimension in your life, and I think that's one of the things that I think would be good as well as cooking.
Alice?
And Gabrielle, I see in the chat that Marie-France Laval says that she too looks forward to watching that film tonight. So you'll have to look out for her. And she's great. And she's also is a big fan of baby-led feeding and teaching kids to cook. Yes, so a great thank you for tuning in, Marie-France. But I wanted to say that food is not the only way for people to connect, but it's the easiest way. Because if we think about our hierarchy of needs, we don't need to listen to music. We don't need to learn another language. We need to eat. And so every day we have 3, sometimes more opportunities to connect with ourselves, to connect with our environment, with our community, and with culture, whether it be our own or other people's. So I would encourage people to continue to connect through food, but further to your point, Di, is it where we end the conversation? Absolutely not. Absolument no. How is that? Because if we keep these conversations about celebrating diversity and appreciating each other's differences and also embracing each other as a community, to 1 week a year or 1 day where we all bring a plate, that's not enough. And I think that what we've seen, certainly I think the paradigm shift has been precipitated and accelerated through COVID, is people are coming back to themselves, coming back to being proud of where they come from. And anytime that you feel, don't just wait for Harmony Week to connect with people about their culture. Anytime that you want to know something, is a very good time to ask those questions. And I do think that it's much easier to ask someone about a dish that you're hoping to cook from their culture, and then through that sort of gaining more knowledge about the culture as well. So, yes to food, yes to any day in the year. Thank you for your question and looking forward to more. What was that?
I'm keen now to go to some audience questions, and a reminder to our audience that to submit a question, you can head to menti.com on your phone or desktop and either enter the 8-digit code we're displaying on the top of our webinar screen now, or scan the QR code appearing on the right of your screen. This will open Mentimeter on your phone or device, where you can click on to open Q&A. From there, you'll be able to submit a question or simply vote up a question that you'd like to see answered. So we have a couple of questions ready to kick us off. So here you go. There's, when it comes to food and cooking, what have you learned from other cultures?
I'm going to kick this one off.
Yeah,
umami. Umami is something that I learnt. Obviously, it's a Japanese word, and it was discovered as a 5th taste by a Japanese scientist in the 1920s. But it's something that we speak about more and more in our food bubble, and is starting to creep into general conversation with eaters around the world. It's that savouriness that you get from the amino acids in mushrooms, tomatoes, Vegemite, aged meat, blue cheese, all of those things, and those are flavors. Kimchi is full of umami, soju less so, but anything fermented, I suppose, is rich with umami. And I couldn't go past Kewpie mayonnaise, Japanese mayo, in my pantry, which is fabulous in a potato salad. A very Aussie potato salad on Christmas Day has Kewpie mayo in it.
Chung, does anyone want to jump in?
Yeah, I came to Australia a long time ago. Not really long, but I tried the Vegemite. And I tried once, it was too salty. Twice, getting worse. So I put some butter and honey. It tastes better. So that's why I learned how do you eat the culture of the Australian food. And then the people had to understand their culture to create the new dishes from their own country. So when I came to first time, and I only want to eat kimchi and rice, but staying here is getting used to other people's, like Indonesian food and French food, German food. All those things I tasted, and then got new dishes idea as well. So, you have to try. You can't just stay home and stick to your mother's food. If you open your mind, you can get more good idea and better for your future, for your eating habit. I'm trying to do more healthier at the moment because the food is so much good food, same food every day. You have to eat it. You get put on weight. So I'm cut down a lot of things, make it even olden style, Korean style, which is a olden day. We don't have much carbs, mainly the fermented kimchi and some lean beef, like a bulgogi, jayu, things like that. They can learn people can learn their own country's food and then but other people's much better as well.
I'm
Give you
just
that
going
answer.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to go to the next question because obviously, you know, we can all answer different topics. So the next one is, how do you think events like A Taste of Harmony contribute to diversity in the workplace? Gabriel.
Well, I have taken part in a few lunches when we could get together and share for A Taste of Harmony. And for many workplaces, it is the only time where most of the staff in an office or the canteen sit together and talk about their traditions and their food. And I've been impressed to see, you know, especially the cakes that people bring from their country and the savory dishes and the salads. If in a room and there's 15 different people from different nationalities, you'd be amazed the salads that you can have, the different seasoning, the different texture. So it is certainly a bring, you know, together, and it's at the end it is culture. It's about education. It's about sharing something new, feeling richer at the end of the day. And there's no doubt that that's what A Taste of Harmony brings, a richer life in people.
Alice, do you want to, you know, contribute to that about what does A Taste of Harmony means to you?
Well, it's events like A Taste of Harmony that helped make my parents feel welcome in Australia when we first moved here. And I'm sure for people who are new to this country, feeling the dignity of people complimenting them on their culture with conversations that might not otherwise take place in the workplace can only be a good thing.
Going to some questions about dishes, food now. What's the very first thing you learned to cook, Chung?
Okay, the rice. You have to put the rice in the rice cooker. Because sometimes if your water is not right, you get like a sticky rice. If you're less white, it's really like a sand. So that's the really hard bit when I was a kid.
Yeah, but back in those days, there were no rice cooker though. You had to cook it on, remember, you had to cook on a stove. So that's
right.
harder. You have to stand by the stove.
Yeah.
And yes, I remember. The first thing I had to cook was
rice.
rice.
Put the stone on top to make the pressure there. Yeah, we're making own way, old style. And also the chopping the onion. Because we got really blunt knife. It's not like these days. So one chopping the onion, we cry, all family. Especially if I'm chopping it. Yeah. Yeah, that's learn and dishes.
Yeah.
Gabriel?
A good
chef have to be good.
Yeah.
Well, I always say that cooking is like a language, or it's like music. So you have got ingredients and you become familiar with ingredients. So that's what you learn first. You might learn to peel an apple, or you might learn to put the apple on the cake. So mostly people don't learn a dish first. They learn a little technique because they're helping their parents, they're stirring. And so when you learn lots of little techniques, it's like learning lots of notes of music. You know, you have a little tune and then you have a song. Or with a language, you learn new words, you learn little phrases, and then you learn to discuss. So with cooking, it's lots of little techniques, like chopping an onion, like stirring, like pouring, like measuring. It's good for kids. And then little by little, you become fluent. But for me, it was definitely to handle fruits and collecting the herbs in the garden, getting to know the names of the fruits and vegetables.
Alice? What was...
The first thing I learned to cook, well, I'm just reading the comments. Someone says that they miss seeing you on the Tour de France, Gabrielle. You were a highlight. They learned so much about France and French cuisine because of you, which is awesome. For me, it was exactly the same. So one of the first responsibilities in our kitchen was watching the eggplants, char-grilled eggplants, a very classic sort of Georgian dish that would be served with a garlic aioli. And I just had to make sure that they didn't burn. And even to this day, if I'm cooking with my parents for a feast, for a family feast, that's my job. You know, Dad entrusts me only with that.
Well, we char-kill eggplant, but have garlic, chili, fish sauce on the char. Yeah. So my God, there's a bit of Georgian there. The next question is: are there any flavors that should never be mixed in the same dish?
I never yuck someone else's yum. So if someone tells me that they love Vegemite with butter and honey, I'm not going to say, oh, I'm not a fan of that until I taste it. So Chung, thank you for that recommendation.
You know that sometimes two ingredients might not work together, but those two ingredients might work with two other ingredients. So, you know, it is, you have got to look at it as not as simple as saying chocolate doesn't go with this. Or, I think you need to be open. At least that's really fabulous what you said, because it is, yeah, I hate if you produce something that is a little bit cultural or traditional and people say, oh, yuck. You know, like it is certainly was one of the big thing in our family that we would not, we would never say yuck or yum. If you don't like something, you just don't touch it. It's not for you, perhaps.
A good rule.
Like KP, I had the beret also. Maybe you prefer this one.
Yeah, that one, the blue one. So Chung, any two ingredients that should never mix?
Oh, it's a lot of things, but not as long as I'm not cooking and the other people is cooking for me, I'll be just happy. So I'm not sure about what you're mixing. Oh, not sure. I never tried the mixing bad one. Always, I don't know. Maybe I tried the Vegemite with some other food, but still not gonna work yet. So we'll see. I'm still trying.
Yes.
Young.
What is your most memorable food experience? We've got a vote of 3 here for this question.
Okay.
I've got one. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Go.
Shall we rock, paper, scissors for it? Okay. So this is one that really quickly comes to mind. I was filming for MasterChef almost a decade ago. We were in Italy, in Tuscany, in Firenze, and it's a region that's known for one particular dish called Lamprodoto, and that is boiled fourth stomach of a cow.
Oh.
And it's kind of like a tripe soup, but it's even funkier in the aroma, because obviously, you know, the closer the stomach to the back end, the more aromatic it is. But I have to say that the flavor of it took me right back to a Georgian dish, which is called hashi, and it's a tripe soup that we eat first thing in the morning with plenty of garlic. Grown-ups would, you know, drink something rocket fuel-esque. And so even though my fellow contestant was just sticking up her nose and couldn't eat another bite, I, you know, tucked in with vigor, and the camera was right in my face. Gabrielle, I'm sure you know that feeling.
Absolutely. Well, for me, there's been many, of course, over the years. You know, when you have been a chef for 50 years and eaten in good restaurants and cook, you know, special meals. I think that one that I remember is that when I did my apprenticeship in the Loire Valley, we had, you know, I worked in a Michelin star restaurant, and my chef was famous for his beurre blanc sauce, which is made with shallots and cooked in wine and vinegar and butter. And that was served with either some wild salmon from the Loire River. Our river is famous for his wild salmon, or some pikes. And I thought that that was just sublime. As a young apprentice, I really, when I tasted it for the first time, it blew my mind. I thought that's why I want to become a chef, to discover you know, the secrets of achieving those very special moments.
Chung, any two that you...
I can hear you.
Okay.
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move to the next question. Have your recipes changed over recent months or years to mix cuisine styles dishes as fusion foods become more popular? Chung?
Yes. Starting the Korean restaurant in Australia about 2000 started. and I did a really authentic style, and it wasn't working much because a lot of soup dish, like a pork belly soup and beef soup, all those things, is unusual for the Western people at the time. And then since then, I'm changing after 4 years later, more fusion style, which is like a Korean style dumpling, but I put some little bit of wonton style with some creamy basil sauce and with the tempura prawns on top, like that. And fried kimchi, all those things like that. And people love it. They don't care how much they want to pay because it's a little bit different. So which means the base is the same. All the gochujang, doenjang, and yeah, all those things the same base, but just changing a little bit of extra, like I put some clothes on nicely, and then people like it. Yeah, so yeah, it's been changing a lot of my style cooking.
Gabriel?
Also, every
Okay.
home cook will interpret a dish in a different way. So it is only natural that someone will want to add a little flavor that they relate to. That being said, sometimes if I go to a French restaurant, I don't want it to be too Asian. If I go to an Asian restaurant, I don't like it to be too French. It depends what you go for. But that being said, fusion is wonderful because it's a cuisine on its own. Sometimes what it does is that you're not quite sure. It's hard to put an identity to the food. It's a bit hard to give an identity to Australian food. If I have guests from France, where do I take them to have an Australian meal? It's difficult. Where it's a lot easier if you go in South Korea to give a meal, or for you in Vietnam, a Vietnamese meal. So fusion is great in the plate. It's great in the plate, but it maybe sometimes may lack a little bit of culture in depth.
Do you think the fusion food takes it away from the actual, authenticity of the culture? Do you think? That's just my own question.
Yeah, no, it does. It does on occasions. But if you have a brilliant chef that does fusion and it is delicious and it is fresh, but you may not think of it as a dish from Asia. You just think of it as a nice dish. But certainly that it's sometimes difficult to make the whole meal marry well, because it's good to have some kind of a theme in a meal, something that is at the same level. But there's so many ways. I think fusion is wonderful, but you need to be careful not to, maybe not to change it too much as not to be able to recognize the origin of the dish.
Okay, I think we've got about 4 minutes left. What are some of the practical ways, another question, that people, whether it's co-workers or neighbors, can form new relationships using food as a starting point? What are some of the practical ways? Can you see the screen, guys? The panels?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, for example, I'll do the first. When we're moving the house, and then we actually making rice cake. So we're giving pass on to all the new neighbors, and then say we move into this apartment. So we just say hello to them. That's the Haidu culture in Korea. So we actually see each other's face to face, and then we're giving like a sticky rice with the black beans on top. It's like a sweet dessert rice cake. So there's kind of things we bring the lucky to the other people as well. That's the Korean culture we do actually new people relationship. And also once we deliver, and then the people welcoming to giving another food, which is like a pancake style, Korean seafood pancake with like chives and spring onions and prawn. So we giving and take all the food. So we actually talking about, okay, how many spoon you have in your house, how many chopsticks you got in your house. So they're talking so much after that. So become really good friends and neighbors. Too much gossip.
Very. Gosh, I wish I was your neighbor, Chung.
Oh
I
dear.
think it is nice to have those, those once a year get together with the neighbor around, around barbecue or around something, in the local park with all the generations. Personally, I like to make a seasonal jam. And when I make jam, I don't make large quantities, and I just get 1 kilo. Like this week, I saw some fabulous pineapples that smell so sweet, and I'm going to make about 2. I'm going to make just maybe 4 or 5 jars of pineapple jam, and I will give some around. And so we have got fruit trees ourselves. We have a fig tree that start to give, and I will do that.
Oh, I'd love your pineapple jam. Oh my gosh. I love pineapple. We haven't got that time here, but one day I'll tell you the story about pineapple and our settlement in Australia as refugees from Vietnam. We haven't got much time for that. But I didn't know that you can make pineapple jam. I don't think I've ever seen
what? When you in the southern state of Australia, we are not very creative with our jam. It's always the same 3 or 4 flavors.
Yeah.
As soon as you go to the tropics, then there's pawpaw jam, and you can mix pawpaw and pineapple. You can mix mango and pineapple. It's the same process. You cut the fruit into small pieces. You toss it with a bit of sugar. You leave it for a few hours, and then you cook it slowly until you get to that texture of jam, and it keeps well if you have prepared your. So it is. You can make all kind of jam, and you can mix various fruits together to be a bit more exotic.
Well, my gosh, look, thank you so much. I think I'm afraid we're out of time. Thank you so much. I've learned so much listening to Chung, Gabriel, and Alice. A big thank you to our speakers. Once again, Alice, Chung Jae, and Gabriel for sharing your ideas and personal anecdotes today. It's been a great conversation with lots of useful tips and inspirational ideas. I'd love your kimchi. I'd love your pineapple jam there. And to our audience, thank you also for taking the time to tune in, out of your day and be part of our session, our first digital, event. So if you or your colleagues are interested in attending one of other free digital events that is being run by A Taste of Harmony in the next fortnight, you can head to tasteofharmony.org.au to find out more. There's the opportunity to participate in the virtual cook-along, which much loved chef Guy Grossi and comedian Nasim Hussain on Instagram Live next Monday, the 22nd of March, plus a lunch and learn webinar session with Chef Fast Ed and Community Hubs Australia CEO Dr. Sonia Hood on Thursday, March the 25th. I hope you enjoyed today's session discussion and that it helped to spark some ideas you can adopt, or perhaps conversations that you can continue in your workplace after today and into the future. So thanks again, everybody, for joining us, and have a great afternoon. Thank you.